If
guessing
we're
that.
going to be interrupted, I like that it was Wanda Sykes.
Yes,
That's okay.
I think she agrees. She agrees that this Emmy-winning reporter who has graced the airwaves for ABC, CBS, NBC, Entertainment Tonight, among many others. You'll know him from his interviews with the biggest stars and most notorious figures, from Elizabeth Taylor to Charles Manson. These are the stuff of TV legend. But behind that anchor desk, in front of the camera, Garrett was fighting a far more personal battle, one that would eventually define his entire career, the battle to be his authentic self. And what do you hear every day in California? Be authentic. And when you are, they smack you down. But some of us have figured out how to do it. Garrett Glaser, you've written Fairyboy, Growing Up Gay and Out in pre-Stonewall, New York and beyond, and you're offering a fascinating time travel experience through the hidden world of gay New York before Stonewall riots, along with everything else, a call to arms for queer journalists. Don't hide, don't apologize, live your truth, and use your outsider status to make the world better. Your memoir, Fairyboy, I want to welcome you, Garrett Glaser, to Unzipped.
Thank you, Cary. I meant to tell you 15, 20 years ago at NLGJ, you have a great voice.
Well, thank you. I will
I hear a
accept
lot
that.
of guys, you have a great, and have long had a great voice, but you're just blessed with it, I think. And you're also too kind to say all those nice things about the book.
Well, I will record personal messages for you to help put you to sleep at night.
Great.
So
Okay.
I do that for a very modest fee. Let's let's jump right on into it. First off, Fairyboy is a hell of a title, and I hear Betty
Yeah,
Friedan's kid had a hand in
it's
that
so
one.
funny.
How
They're
did
so
that
funny.
conversation go?
I got a scholarship to a private progressive school when I was 12 in 1965, and not a year later, I found my first crush, a beautiful, brilliant boy named John Friedan, who I would get nervous if I was even close to him. He was just a perfect little boy. And he was class president, and he was the son of Betty Friedan, who had written The Feminine Mystique the year before, or 2 years before. And on the bus to soccer practice, I laughed when someone said something at his expense, and I don't remember what it was, but I went, and then he looked over and he looked at me. He said, "Look who's laughing, Fairy Boy." Well, I should have been insulted, but I wasn't. I was thrilled that he could tell he knew me, he knew who I was. And I just thought, that's really cool. And I never told him how I figured he was straight. I guess he's straight, but I just never, I would have been embarrassed if he had known. So,
I went to summer camp right around the same age. I'm guessing you were probably around 13 or 14, probably.
mhm.
I went to camp in Colorado with Barry Goldwater's grandson.
Oh my God.
Ty Ross, I think his name was, and we had a crush on each other and used to sit in the swing set
Oh.
swinging. I mean, I didn't know what the word was. I didn't know what the thing was, but I felt the connection. And my father, a right-wing Republican, neo-Nazi fascist John Bircher, was thrilled that it was Barry Goldwater's grandson, but didn't know the secret. You, on the other hand, figured out how to, I don't know, have congruency with your own nature. And a lot of people still today can't do it.
I was in writing the book, I thought about that. You know what? I had a mom and dad who somehow, even though, my mom was in the Women Marines, my father was in the Army and got a Silver Star. They were traditional in some ways, but in others, they were very much about being yourself, liking yourself, and the rest will fall into place. If you're doing stuff that reflects you respect and like yourself, I think it's good advice. They never actually said it in those words, but I got that. And one day I said, you know what? I know a lot of gay guys who are closeted. My parents had friends who were closeted, married, kids, but I could tell. And I just said to myself, I don't want to live that way at that age. I said, it's just not worth it. And luckily, the world changed enough since then to make life good. I've had a great life. I'm a very lucky guy.
And Garrett Glaser, you came out on live television in 1994. This is before Ellen came out busting the kindling on her closet door and got clobbered by the advertisers. You came
Yeah.
out. Did you expect a career suicide note or a standing
Well,
ovation?
no. The great story is I didn't come out by my choice. I got called into work one day after the LA Times did a profile on this gay guy and this gay guy at Channel 4. And I thought, oh, that's nice. It's a nice profile. But they started doing a thing like Glaser Watch. Is he out yet on the air? Is he out on the air? And I think NBC got pissed a while after a while, or just tired of it. So I walk in, the president calls me and she says, look, you're coming out today. And I went, what? She said, you're coming out of the closet on the air today. And I said, okay, fine. What's the excuse? And she said, well, it's just time. And I said, well, how do I make sense of it? Here's what's at the movies and I'm a homo. It's not going to work. Like, you got to tie it into a story. So she said, well, what do you got today? And I used to anchor this little showbiz segment every day for like 4 minutes, 5 minutes. And I thought, well, here are my stories today. And then one of them was Elizabeth Glaser, Pediatric AIDS Foundation obituary. So I said, yeah, that's what I should tie it into. And she said, okay. And I got on the air and I said, when I get up to that story, I said, as a gay man who's lost many, many friends to AIDS and HIV, I'm so grateful for how she helped to mainstream awareness of this terrible disease. And it worked. We got a few nasty calls, but mostly people were very supportive. It tells you how much the world was changing, I think.
I
Uh,
think a lot of it is not just the world, it's you. So around that time, 1994, I was at the March on Washington in 93, I believe it
yes,
was.
yes. Yep.
And I met one of the Darrens of Bewitched, Dick Sargent,
Yes,
the
I
second
interviewed
Darren.
him. He was a lovely guy. Lovely guy.
And here we were when we watched Bewitched. Suddenly it's the new season, and Darren has grown 7 feet, and Andorra didn't cast a spell. But that's probably another conversation. And I
Funny.
asked him, so how do you come out? And he said, well, you just sit at the dinner table with your family and you say, I'm gay, pass the salt. And
Right.
if you keep the controversy out of it, you're not making them feel bad and have to do something about your reality. And I think
Yeah.
that's what you did. You just owned it and said, here it is,
Yeah.
and what's for dinner? And
It
brilliant.
was well, thanks. It was a dinner party. Not really a party. This is like my mom's sister and my mom's colleague from work sitting there. And I said, look, I got to tell you something, Mom. And I was like 14, 15, 14. I said, I need you to know I'm gay. And that's the way it is. And I'm sorry if it upsets you, but that's not going to change. That's who I am. And I love you. And there was silence. And the first thing I want to tell you was supportive. It wasn't. It's, you're going to a psychiatrist right now, young man. We're going to put a stop to this. And I thought, well, it's a little harder than that. But, that was her reaction. Well, within 6 months, she had escorted my boyfriend and I on a cruise. She was totally accepting within a few months. So, and
What do
she
you think
was
turned that around, Garrett?
the fact that I was happy, that I showed that I could get a career. She was thought if you come out, you'll never get a job. That was her, from back in the 40s. You came out, you didn't work. So I think she and my father were thinking, what's going to happen to our kid? Once they saw that more and more people were coming out, I think they became much more comfortable with it. And the fact that, the best part was, she sends me to the shrink. The shrink says at 14, 30. I just remember 30th Street, New York Graduate Center for Psychotherapy. I think that's what it was. And the shrink says, why do you fear the vagina? And I said,
Because I came out of it and it still hurts.
I said, I don't. I said, I'm not interested in it, but I'm not afraid of it or anything. And he said, well, what do you want to talk about then? And I said, I want to talk about how hard it is to find a boyfriend in New York City, even when you're a cute young guy. Because I was a cute young teenage boy. And she just, the shrink said, the male shrink said, well, let's talk about that. And once my mother found out, she said, how you doing with your shrink, honey? Well, we talk about boyfriend stuff. She hit the roof again and said, he sounds as friggin' gay as you are. I'm sending you 3 times a week to change, and you're talking about that. So anyway, it turned out fine. She was very supportive, and of course, she was like an agent and a casting director, and had been on the air in the '40s. She had a lot of gay friends, so she knew you could work and be honest and open about who you are.
Were
That's
you
why I love
treated any
you.
different at work? Oh, everybody loves
Um,
Cary, but were you treated any different at work?
Really wasn't. I actually think what happened, what I learned is they take their cue from you. If you're open and honest about who you are and it's matter of fact, most people are fine. If you're uptight or concerned or insecure or fearful around it, they might be too. So my instinct was be comfy with who you're not fooling them anyway. It's rare that you can fool somebody. I used to be amazed. And how did I know my mom's and father's friends occasionally were gay? I could just feel it. I could feel it. And it's sad. That's how people had to be, I think, in the old days. Did you ever look at Confidential magazine? The terrible closet. They'd go after Liberace or people like that. The most horrible, insulting coverage. And they'd get sued and they didn't care. I mean, people were so mean to homosexuals, bisexuals, lesbians. It was just such a different time, and I should send you, Kara, this magazine. I Not a magazine, but it's like a book, and it's written by two guys in the '50s who basically gossip guys making fun of fags in New York and L.A. And what a terrible thing this is. And this is published, and kids could buy it. You didn't need to be 18. It was just a hateful, hateful publication. And guess what? There were more than one of them. There were a bunch of them.
And
Do
I'll
you
bet they
realize how
had
lucky we are?
advertisers.
They
Yeah,
sure did.
we're,
Yeah.
we're lucky, though we seem to be teetering back to that particular
Yeah.
brink. And so I think we have to have each other's back at this point, which is, I think, one of the great reasons that you've written Fairyboy, because it reminds us about who and what we are and the fight for integrity and congruency ahead. This is not the time to throw in the towel, leap back in the closet, and think you're going to be safe. If you think you're going to be safe, especially with a big digital footprint these days, you no longer can be invisible. So I think none of us has a choice but to continue to suit up and show up.
It's great that you say that because it's very easy to get discouraged or depressed today with what's going on. And then you realize, no, don't give up, keep up the pressure. And it'll pass eventually, I think. I sure hope so.
Well, I do too. Thanks to people like you to remind us. We're talking right now to Garrett Glaser, the Emmy-winning journalist who broke boundaries and broke the silence, a veteran reporter for ABC, CBS, NBC, and Entertainment Tonight. Garrett made history in 1994 as the first local TV correspondent to come out as gay on the air, and his memoir, Fairyboy, Growing Up Gay and Out in Pre-Stonewall New York and Beyond, takes us through his coming-of-age story in gay New York before Stonewall, from secretive bathhouses to breaking free from the closet. His message? Live your truth, use your outsider status, and change the world. And have a nice day. I threw that in parenthetically.
Can
But
I say one thing in 12
yes,
seconds?
please.
For people who just don't feel like reading another memoir, I hired an audio guy and he helped me do the narration for the audiobook version. Oh, they're all on Amazon, but the audiobook is really good. He had a very expensive microphone and I sound great. So I hope they'll buy the audiobook if they don't want to read. It
I
sounds
love
great.
audiobooks because you can do so many things while you're listening. You can
That's
travel, you
right.
can clean, you
I
can,
love them.
buy things online.
I love them, and I'm new
Yeah.
to them. I thought, oh, I don't want that. No, I do. I was an idiot. I should have done this years ago, this audiobook stuff.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah,
Congratulations
thank
on
you.
your book.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Very nice.
Well, Garrett Glaser, I'm thrilled to reconnect after all of this time. And I will reach out to you independently because I have some ideas to help in
Cool.
ways that I can. And I'm just thrilled that you did this thing. And thank you for being out during a time where people are so spooked. There's no guidance, no direction. Nobody seems to have their back. And your memoir is like Paul Monet's Becoming a Man to me. It just reminds
Oh,
me that
thank you.
I am Alexander the Great, that I am the Emperor Hadrian. So great. And I appreciate it.
Becoming a Man is on my nightstand. It's a beautiful book. Yeah,
It
great
really
writing.
is.
Thank you
so
so
much.
much for being so nice to you and the guest.
My pleasure, my friend. There you have it. For being an outsider to a trailblazer, Garrett Glaser's story is one of survival, truth, the constant battle against the closet. Maybe someday we'll live in a world where everyone can just be themselves, but for now, we're going to settle for the ones we fought to make that world a reality. Here's to the warriors. Here's to the stories we're still writing. Fairyboy. You can find it everywhere where books are sold or vended or procured or whatever. Check it out for sure. Thank you so much again, Garrett Glaser.
Thanks, Cary.
Cary Harrison with you. Don't forget, you definitely need to get our newsletter so you can get a full and complete transcript of this broadcast. You can simply go to caryharrison.com, C-A-R-Y, caryharrison.com. There you're going to get this entire show, plus clips and stuff we simply will not and cannot any longer do on the radio. And that's our newsletter at caryharrison.com. You know, everyone wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? Well, you can call low-cost airlines because they specialize in cheap flights, in discount hotel rooms, in cheap car rentals, and with the best price guarantee, often at 75% off. That's right, cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, and cheap car rentals, often at 75% off. I want you to call 901-235-1795, 901-235-1795, 901-235-1795. Call now, 901-235-1795. Just a quick pause to ask if you have diabetes or are pre-diabetic. If you have insurance, you may qualify for a new continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels, you can track your trends, you can spend more time in range, you can lower your A1C, and you can share important data with loved ones and caregivers. Most importantly, a continuous glucose monitor allows you to fully take charge of your health. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you take insulin, you may qualify for a CGM today. My friends at Verimed are going to do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances cover continuous glucose monitors, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call Verimed Health right now. Call 855-996-9708. 855-996-9708, 855-996-9708, 855-996-9708. Call now.